Hello, I'm Carrie Gard, and welcome to Tea Time with Tech Marketing Leaders. You are in the right spot. It is a little earlier than usual because I have a special guest with me today, all the way from Tel Aviv, and I didn't want her to have to jump on with me at like her midnight. So we're coming to you a little earlier today, and I'm so excited for this conversation. I think it's going to align really nicely with the CRO series I have going on. So a little bit about Naomi, as she is not part of the CRO series, but she is lending a helping hand. I can't wait to get into the conversation. Naomi helps busy demand gen leaders optimize their messaging on ads and landing page strategically so they make more out of every single dollar. After all, there's only so far you can raise your bids, but there's no limit to how far you can optimize your copy. And because she understands PPC and ABM inside and out, she knows how to work with your data to make it happen. Her process is simple. She conducts a serious qualitative and quantitative customer research. She focuses on telling a good story on ads and landing pages, and then she mercilessly optimizes towards results. Naomi, welcome to the show.
Thank you so much for having me.
Oh, I am so excited to have you. As I mentioned, I am meeting with chief revenue officers. I've never had the pleasure, and now I'm meeting with a ton of them. It's fantastic. And they're being revenue driven on their end, and then talking to marketers who are so niche like yourself, who are also trying to be more conscious of pipeline and revenue, is just fascinating. So I can't wait to dive into our topic. Before we get there though, what's your story, Naomi? What do you do now and how did you get there?
Yeah, so I studied English literature in university, and I found myself in Tel Aviv. There was a brief period of time where I thought about becoming an English professor, and Tel Aviv is one of the largest tech ecosystems in the world. A lot of people don't know this. Israel is in the news a lot, but not always for its technology. And there are a ton of startups. Part of that is because it's an immigrant nation. A lot of people have moved here, or their grandparents moved here. So there's a ton of new startups with some incredible technology. And so I wanted to get involved, and I figured that copywriting would be a really good fit for me because I really understand a lot about storytelling. And the way I see it, if you're telling the story of a character or telling the story of a customer, you're still telling a story. So very early on, I joined a startup that was extremely data-driven. They would even test like what color hair, if they had an image of a person, like what color hair would convert best. It was really, really that detailed. And by the way, I was the redhead. Redhead always performs the best. And from there, I found that there was, in a lot of marketing teams, there's sort of a gap between people who are very demand gen focused and are focused on bids and numbers and prices and keywords, and people who are really creative. And there's not a lot of people who can live in both worlds. So what I really try to do is I will sit down, I'll look in Tableau, I'll look in the CRM, I'll look in Google Ads, I'll look in the back end for the campaigns, and I'll understand, okay, what metrics are we looking at? What are we trying to optimize for? What's going on in these campaigns? And then take those insights and turn them into better creatives. And that's both copy and design, as well as content. And I find that optimizing with copy is so easy because it doesn't require any other resources. It doesn't require any other investment. It doesn't require any more tools, but the results can be really, really phenomenal. And again, if you can't raise your bids, there's still room to scale your campaigns. So I worked in a couple of different startups, and now I'm on my own.
I so appreciate this, especially when we're talking about companies and brands who can't really sell the thing in a one-liner, right? And so really thinking through, we're going to get into it in a minute. It's going to be great. Before we get there, jumping ahead. Before we get there, what's going on for you right now, Naomi, in terms of a challenge you're currently facing? What's making your job harder than maybe it should be?
Well, I think that we're going through a really, really big shift right now in marketing. Technology changes very rapidly in general. But I think number one, with the rise of AI, and number two, with the market being the way it is, margins are really, really thin. So marketing budgets are being slashed left and right. And a lot of growth marketers, campaign managers, marketing leaders are trying to find ways to optimize their budget. So we're not seeing the same kind of Google campaigns we were. We're seeing a lot of ABM. We're seeing a lot of community building. And I think we're seeing a lot of confusion and chaos. And so I'm trying to figure out how I can best contribute in this changing landscape.
Oh my gosh. It is so, yes, we're all feeling that margin. Yeah. The struggle is definitely real for our clients. And having to do more with less. And so let's get into it, because this is the perfect opportunity to do more with less, or more with what you already got when we're talking about copy. So let's define for the audience here, Naomi, copywriting / editing, which is very different than, I'm going to say, normal writing. But yeah, help define this for us a little bit in the lens of what you do.
Yeah, so a lot of times people say copywriting is your online salesman. It's available 24/7, they're on your page, they're selling even when you're asleep. That is to mean that copywriting is sales focused. It's meant to drive conversions. It's typically not meant to entertain. It's not meant to inform. There's definitely creative copywriting, but I would say that copywriting, the way that I refer to it and the way that it's usually understood, especially when it comes to digital marketing and online media, is really, what message do you put on the page to get people through your funnel, either to a free trial or to sign up for a demo?
It's tricky, because good copywriting, you're going to correct me if I'm wrong here, Naomi, it's going to be great. But from my understanding, good copywriting is actually where it feels stupid simple. Like where the headline is, here's a great example. There's a website that I'm obsessing with right now called Vast. They're a startup where they're going to let people live in space. It's going to be magical.
Wow.
But that is literally their tagline about, living in space. Come live in space. It's like wild how incredibly simple that is. And no duh, but it's so hard to get to that no duh in my experience, and with some of the, with what Vast is building, it's a pretty simple product to sort of talk about. So it's maybe not the greatest example. We're all, especially some of our clients, have much more complex products that they're trying to sell, especially in cybersecurity, data management platforms. It's like, how do you differentiate yourself in a single liner and tell people like what it is you do and bring value? It's like all the different things you need to do in a headline. It's wild. So let's talk about that for a second. Let's take something as straightforward, not straightforward, but as big and prominent as the headline, right? From a copywriting standpoint, and even when you're talking about digital ads, right? You only get so many characters. You got to fit it all in. So how do you prioritize? How do you start in trying to figure out what that headline needs to say to start the conversion process?
Yeah, I think you really hit the nail on the head, Carrie. When it comes to copywriting, sometimes it's the simplest taglines that work the best. And in my opinion, I think it gets down to the essence of the message. And a lot of times that comes down to people's basic needs, basic psychological needs. I think this is the most powerful motivator. You can talk about lots of benefits of the product, features of the product, long-term benefits, but I think that if you can get at a user's basic psychological needs, then you are going to get it right. So a lot of times this is a sense of security or control. Do people have control over their work? Do they have control over their numbers, over the information coming in? That's a really deep human psychological need. And so, for example, when I was at Monday, we were experimenting with so many different creative taglines, talking about efficiency and talking about ROI and achieving business goals and workflows and automations. And one day we just tried take control of your team's work. And that was it. That one just hit it out of the park. It's like, what, 5 words?
Yeah.
And it's something really as simple as that. And I think that there are a few basic psychological needs. One could be belonging to a tribe, having a sense of belonging, self-fulfillment, accomplishment. These are things that we all share, that we all need. And you can talk about it on a tactical level. You can talk about it on an emotional level. Either way, that's what's really going to drive people, in my opinion.
Just take a step back for folks. What Naomi's talking about is the hierarchy of needs, right? So first you need to feel safe. And then once you feel safe, you need to have a sense of belonging. And then once you have a sense of belonging, it's all about how you have that purpose. So I have a couple questions in regards to that, Naomi. The first one is, in terms of that safety piece, one of the struggles that cybersecurity folks in particular have is not falling victim to what we call FUD, fear, uncertainty, and doubt, right? You don't want to scare people into buying your product. But I like what you're saying from a more positive aspect around the point of control, right? Of what you can and can't control. And here's what you can control with this product to make your life easier. What a word. What a word. Is there other words around that we can start to steer towards a more positive outcome in terms of our own, psychological needs? When you only have 5 words to work with, that one word makes all the difference. So what else you got? What else have you tried? What's worked? What hasn't?
Master, I really like. Master can work really well. I don't know, maybe dominate could work well. I also think that stressing the opportunity cost has been interesting for me. So don't worry about what might happen. Like, instead of scaring people and say this terrible thing is going to happen, you can say, don't worry about, or don't get bogged down in all of these worries, all of these concerns. And stressing that sense of opportunity cost, how much time and energy and investment they're going to put into worrying about this problem, is a way of sort of talking about how much the problem is costing them without talking about all of the potential effects of that problem.
One less thing to worry about.
Exactly.
That's such a great one. I really love, there's so much worry and anxiety in this world. If you can just give me one less thing to worry about, I am here for that. I think that's magical, because we come back to trying to think about how to take this very hard thing that we do. I feel like this is my second part for you, Naomi, is like, how do you tie it in a way that doesn't make it feel too high level, too vaporware? I find that when we're trying to figure out a tagline or that headline, and if we don't immediately start to think about a product or a feature, right, and it ends up being too high level. So how do you sort of help bridge that gap between making it feel tangible and real in line with, the hierarchy of needs?
Well, I think it's also important to know like where it is that you're writing. If you're writing a very top of funnel ad, then you just want to get their attention. You just want to get them to the next stage of the funnel. You don't have to put all of your messaging on one ad. If you're on a landing page, you're just getting them to sign up for a demo. If you are on a website, if you're on the home page, then you're just getting them to click on the next page, the next product page, so they can see what else, so they can get more information about their specific use case. So I think that the amount of detail you include is really dependent on where it is you're writing, who you're writing to, and how much information they have. So if you can start to answer those questions and map out that journey, then you can get a sense of, is this very top of funnel? Are we just sort of grazing the surface? Or is this further down? And actually we should be talking about features because they're comparing us to our competitors and they want to know the details.
Okay, let's unpack all of that because that's so important. So important. I feel like sometimes we feel like we got to say it all, and we got to say it right now, or we're going to lose attention, right? Because attention is finite these days. And then once we captured it, what are we going to do with it? And so one of the things you mentioned earlier on when you were telling your own personal story was the importance of story. And I feel like we're starting to touch on that. Of when you're watching a movie or even binging a TV show, right? You're not getting the whole story arc in the first 10 minutes, right?
True.
So I think what you said is so powerful in what needs to be accomplished right now. And I find so often nowadays, there's a shift in the universe. As I continue to talk to CROs and everybody, you're all going to see this as I start to unpack these episodes. There's a shift in the universe around the buyer, and you even mentioned it, Naomi, that it's no longer see it, click it, try it, buy it. Right? Mm-hmm. And they have to be taken on this journey. So depending on where they are in the journey depends on when we need to say what we need to say. And so often I find that we got really dependent on down funnel metrics, demo and trial, push demo, push trial, we need the lead, but we're forgetting about like the 15 steps before that of where they'll even consider handing over their information.
Right.
So I just love what you're saying around this. So you start with, imagine like everybody, you start with the buyer. Who is the buyer, right? Because every buyer's somewhat different, and how they buy there's nuance. So in your experience, where does that journey normally start in the buyers that you're generally working with?
Well, I would say that, we know the statistics, somewhere between like 93 and 97% of people are out of the market for whatever given solution. So you're dealing with a very small percentage of people that are actually ready to buy, thinking about buying. So I think that this is sort of the difference between content and copy, right? If somebody is unaware, then you really want to educate them about what the problem is, what the category is, why it's important, why you should solve, why you should worry about the problem, etc. And copy sort of comes into play after somebody knows that they have a problem. We talk about multiple stages of awareness, right? There's unaware, people don't know they have a problem. Problem aware, where people know they have a problem, but they're not sure what the solution is. Solution aware, where they know there's a solution to their problem, but they're not aware of all the details of the different products available. Product aware, they're starting to compare a few different options. Most aware, they're probably in a demo stage and a free trial stage, and they are deciding whether to commit or not. And problem aware, I think, is where you want to start. That's sort of top of funnel. Those are your top of funnel ads, your more brand awareness ads. Then you have more the benefits, or you have the more solution-oriented stage where they're like, all right, they clicked on an ad, maybe they saw a webinar, you want to start talking about the benefits of using your solution. And then If you're working on material that compares you and your competitors, then you want to start thinking about the features of your product and really doubling down on your USP, explaining why you are an ideal fit for your ideal customer and why they should go with you instead of your competitor.
We talk about the funnel so often in marketing. And like I said, I feel like we end up at the bottom most often, which is more of the after product aware. It's
most aware.
Yes. So I think what we don't do a good job of is that very top. And I've never heard anybody talk about it this way, which is awesome. So, because the way, and again, language is so important, right? And it's what you hang your hat on, which I love. So when you're talking about, that most unaware piece of they don't even know they have a problem, to then problem aware, right? Then we can start thinking about that hat we need to put on. Hi, Trevor. Good to see you, sir. Then we can put that hat on around the problem solution. And we talk about this a lot in copy editing, I think, around value and problem solution, but to think about it from an awareness perspective, right? I don't know that we do a good job of keeping in mind that people have no idea who you are. And they're just focused on, I have this thing and I need to solve for this thing. And I'm just in that very early stage of figuring it out. So, and I think that's where that headline comes in, right, Naomi, of, speaking to that core psychologically hard piece of what's going to make this job easier for them and give them that sense of safety and or belonging and or purpose, right? So that seems to be that first step in that problem of where that fits in nicely. How do you get them to the next step then? Let's assume there's a bit of ad and a website play here. They've come to the landing page. Now what? Chances are they generally leave right away and they go to someone else to see, well, what do they do, right? This isn't the only product out there. They can leave again. Mm-hmm. How do you keep them from leaving? Don't go.
Well, the easiest way is to get rid of the navigation bar so they don't click off accidentally. That's a little trick that'll boost your conversion rates by probably 30 to 50%.
Wait a minute. Remove your navigation bar?
You want to have the logo so they can get to your homepage. You definitely, on a landing page, if it's for Google or if it's for LinkedIn, you don't want to have any other tabs. This is a super easy trick so people can still get to your website if they need, because I think most people know if you click on the logo, you'll get to the homepage, but they're not distracted. In general, you want to remove any distractions. But then otherwise, you may not want everyone to convert because you may also want to qualify people. You want to make sure that you're getting the right people. So I usually will, I'll look at a few things. I will look at the headline, make sure the headline is using the right language. Is it using the right keywords? Is it using the kind of language that the customers are using? Look at the hero image, see how clearly it communicates the product. I'll look at the social proof, the length of the page, and the CTA. Those are the pieces of the landing page that are going to make a really, really big difference. The rest of the page, it's definitely going to make a difference, but it's not going to be as make or break as those other points.
Let's break this down for a second, because when you look at the images, what are you looking for?
Usually looking for something that's clear and simple. When it comes to images, I think the mistake that happens the most is you have designers who are super creative and super talented, and they come up with designs that are really eye-catching and actually distract you from the copy on the other side of the page that's telling you about how the product works. So I generally encourage, and I've seen this, it frustrates marketers to no end. You'll have a landing page and the team will be like, we need to redo this, we have a new brand, we want to scrap this and start all over. They'll come up with a really beautiful landing page and it'll fail. And it'll fail over and over and over again. And that's because sometimes the uglier version actually wins because it's less distracting. And people have fewer images and fewer flashy elements to look at, and they're just converting. So when it comes to like illustrations or animations or things like that, those are really great for the homepage. Those are really great for commercials or banners or like out-of-home campaigns or things like that. For a landing page, you want to be simple. You want to be minimalistic. You want to get people through the funnel.
Okay, so I just want to be really clear. Trevor, I'm going to come to your question in a second. When you're talking about a single landing page. So if you're coming from an ad, this is where we need to differentiate. If you're coming from an ad, you're recommending, Naomi, that you drive to a landing page that does not have a navigation bar so that they can't click around and leave the story and funnel in which you're trying to bring them through.
Mm-hmm. Exactly.
Okay. Trevor's question is helpful on this one because, and maybe this is more about the website versus a landing page because you're talking about minimizing distraction, and I find pop-ups incredibly distracting. Sounds like Trevor does too. What's your take on pop-ups and popovers for both landing pages and even websites as well when you're trying to get people to follow and convert?
Yeah, I would say pop-ups only on the website, not on the landing page, for sure. Landing page, you want to be really strategic because a lot of times you're spending $10, $30, $50,000 a month on the low end for these campaigns. You don't want to put anything to distract the user from the goal that you want them to accomplish. As far as pop-ups, I know everyone hates them. I have seen them work though. So I think that's one of the things where you have to test it. Pop-ups are something that you can test with or without a pop-up. But I think most people will tell you, like, if you're going to have a pop-up, like, change the settings so it only appears either on exit or after the person's been on this page a certain amount of time or after they've scrolled a certain amount of time. This is one of those things. There are two things that marketers hate to admit. When it comes to CRO, pop-ups do sometimes work. And having the pricing on the website, sometimes this is more for PLG than more of a sales-led growth. Having pricing on the website sometimes decreases the conversion rate. So those are some things where you just have to follow the data, right? Like you have to test them. If it's a pricing page, like sure, yeah, you have to have the pricing. But yeah, it can be
but don't leave with
a little bit surprising. Yeah.
So sorry, Trevor. Pop-ups from a marketing perspective, not always a fan favorite of users, but sounds like they work. I would say the only place that I find them less intrusive and I'd be more willing to actually do something about them is on a blog. Yeah, exit time. And I have to have been there for a while. Like,
yeah.
Don't hit me the minute I show up. That is the worst.
Right. Yeah, change the settings. Don't be obnoxious, for sure.
All right, let's get back to the landing page. So you talked about having 3 elements that you look for. One is images, keeping it simple. I would say too.
The hero image is the hero image is the image at the top of the page, because 50 to 60% of people drop off after that first section. So you're going to want to get that image correct.
And the image, I imagine, as I think about building landing pages, I always want the image to tie to the tag. Like the last thing I want is some random filler image for the sake of it. It's gotta show what you're trying to say.
Yeah, it sounds obvious, but it's easy to miss that step. And I think a lot of times SaaS brands, especially some of the More product-led growth ones, they want to show how fun and diverse or disruptive they are. So they have pictures of people, and they have animations and illustrations, and a lot of times just the picture of the software, especially on a landing page, is really what you need. So yeah, you want to make sure that it's really clear.
I mean, for white papers, I just have a picture of the front of the white paper. Is that too obvious? I know it's boring, but it's the thing. This is what you're getting.
Yeah, clarity over creativity.
Oh, I know it hurts. I know creatives. I know it hurts, but you gotta follow the data, as Naomi's saying. I'm in agreement here. All right. So what's the second thing that you look for? You mentioned
So you have the headline, the hero image, the CTA, the length of the page, and the social proof. Those are the five things on a landing page, and I guess the navigation bar, but to get rid of it. Those are the 5 things on a landing page that are going to make a big difference.
I appreciate you, Trevor. Thank you for backing us up. Totally agree. Okay, so we've talked about the headline a lot. We just talked about the image. I think we're good there. Let's talk about social proof, because I sometimes go toe to toe with people on this one, because I'm like, we need to move your logos up, but we need to talk about the companies you worked with. And people are like, I don't want to lead with that. I'm like, I need you to lead with that. So help me out, Naomi. Am I onto something here, or are they right and it can come later?
I like having the company logos at the top. I found that it definitely increases performance.
And is that all the social proof you need? What do you mean by social proof?
So people make decisions in different ways. Some people really care about what other people have to say. Some people care about who else has worked with you. And some people are more numbers-based. They want to see results. They want to see stats. They want to see what you have actually done for other companies. And so when it comes to social proof, number 1, I say have different kinds of social proof. And number 2, I would say that make sure that it says what you're trying to prove. So be careful in what you're selecting. If it's a testimonial, really take the time to comb through your testimonials and find one that's going to resonate with people. And number 3, don't go overboard with social proof. This, I think, is actually what people miss. I've seen landing pages where they have like 20 testimonials and G2 badges and Capterra badges and logos and like all of the social proof. And the truth is, when users see that, they sort of just glaze over. And they're like, okay, they checked the social proof box. Other people have used this, and they don't read any of it. So you want to put social proof on the page that's easy to read, easy to skim, easy to digest.
I like sprinkling it. I look at social proof as like the sprinkles on top of ice cream, right? Like it's nice to have it throughout the website around certain like points you're trying to make. So if you're talking about a feature you have and the outcome of that feature, then having a little bit of social proof as a quote right there ties that nicely together versus putting them all together. To your point, then they're just going to get glazed over. So it's nice to sprinkle it throughout to really help you make your point and say, it's not just us saying this, but here's social proof that this has happened. So I like that too. Yeah. I think that's so key. We have a LinkedIn user, RRF. Thanks for joining us. Asking a question around how long the landing page should be. And you're talking about the importance of the length of the page. So tell us more around that.
So my rule of thumb is that 25% of people should reach the bottom of the page. Now, this is going to be a different conversation for every campaign, because you're going to have your main keywords, your sort of top of funnel keywords. You're going to have your competitor keywords, and you're going to have a lot in the middle. You're also going to have some campaigns that are targeting very niche use cases. Maybe somebody else who might use your solution that's not a typical user, that's not your main user. And so you want to tailor the length of the page to the individual user who's reading it. So let's say you have a solution that's relatively simplistic. People don't really need to read a lot about it. They already kind of understand the category. That you can keep pretty short. Competitor landing page, or for a user that's not a typical user, maybe they're not as tech savvy, they haven't used a solution like yours before, that you're probably going to need more information. So if you're heat mapping this, if you have Hotjar on, then you can take a look. How many people are reaching the bottom of the page? If a lot of people are reaching the bottom of the page, it might be because they need more information. If no one's reaching the bottom of the page, then it might be a little bit overkill. And you don't want your landing page too long, because then it might be overwhelming. People might assume, wow, this is way more complicated than I need. And if it's too short, on the reverse, it may not, either you're not explaining enough, or people may assume that it's not complex enough for them. It's not robust enough for their solution.
I think it goes back to what you were saying earlier too, is that it depends on where they are in the journey, right? And what that conversion, what's this landing page supposed to accomplish, right? So if you're driving them from a paid ad to download a white paper, then when they get to the landing page, it should literally be the white paper, what it's about, and a form, like nothing else. Now, if it's more product and awareness, more at that top of the funnel, to your point, Naomi, then I imagine the next step on that is getting them to click to something else, whether it's a blog or or maybe it is comparing them against competitors, or whatever sort of that next logical step would be. It might not, maybe there is a download on the page, but I do think it has to come back to what is this page supposed to accomplish? And I feel like we get lost in that. And to your point, we try and overdo it. So let's talk about a product page, for instance, right? What should we be asking people to do on a product page? Should it be immediately asking them for a demo or a trial? Is there a step before that we should be considering? What should be the point of that page, and what should we cover on it to move people through and along?
So a product page, like on the website.
Yeah. I think that's where most marketers tend to feel like, I need my product pages to convert.
Yeah, I mean, I would say this is an area where you definitely want to test. I would say, sure, test a demo. But if that's not working, then take it a step back. It might be interesting to test a product tour. If you have a video of the product, if you can do a walkthrough, there are solutions like demo environments that allow you to build interactive product tours. That could be a good next step. Maybe get somebody's email address, maybe gate that, so it's sort of in between. They have to give their email address so you can follow up with them, but they aren't signing up for a demo yet. So I think that that could be a really good middle ground, because then you can give those emails off to the sales team and they can start nurturing those relationships. And a lot of times with B2B, you really need something a little bit more gradual. You need a little bit more hands-on. So if there's any other content, a report, some sort of cheat sheet, or some interesting content that they would find relevant, like that's where you want to try to see what they need, right? Like I don't think that these things are necessarily intuitive. I think it's different for every company, and or maybe it's just a blog. Maybe send them to the blog. But you have to test different things to see what works for your company. But they may not be ready to convert, in which case you have to give them a softer conversion.
I love what Trevor's saying about positioning sales as a resource. I think that as B2B continues to get more complex in in the buyer journey is getting more complex, right? Because there's so many more touch points that they need to be able to make a decision. Especially when you're talking about buying committees and the ABM approach and needing more people to help make that decision. Positioning sales as a resource is a really interesting one, to your point too, Naomi, of like getting leads in the door so sales can start to nurture. I think this is where the industry is. I think this is where the market is heading in general. And as I talk to more CROs, I'm finding this of you can't just get a lead and immediately expect them to buy. And so depending on what they're downloading, to your point, Naomi, if they're downloading something as soft as a white paper, please, sales, do not hit them up and say, let's get you time to buy, right? So I love what Trevor's saying around positioning them as a resource, though. So I think that helps change the language too around sales feeling scary. Like, I've talked to a salesperson.
Yeah, 100%. And
I love that.
I think this is a huge pain point for a lot of companies. Marketing and sales are not aligned, and they have different metrics, and those metrics they sort of seem like enemies. But I think that if sales is taking on more of a consultative role, they're building relationships, they're offering advice and support, then it can really change the conversation. And so we don't have to say, oh, well, all white papers are useless. That's never going to work. Like, okay, well, maybe gate the white paper, but instead of calling them 27 times, like, build the relationship slowly. You know, there's a middle ground here that we can.
I love that. Something that Artur also brought up around white papers, because we're talking a lot about them being wonderful resources and great lead magnets, is that he likes the page to have like a little bit of a teaser in terms of the copy we use in helping move people through the funnel. What we want them to download the white paper. What are some great ways to get them to see the value in asking somebody for an email address these days is a big deal. Mm-hmm. People don't hand their website, their email addresses out like candy like they used to. Like, we have to earn it. So how do you recommend we create that value through the right language we use?
I've done a lot of these kinds of emails, and there are a couple of tactics that I find work. Number one, I really stick to a traditional copywriting formula. I know that for a lot of people, they're like, just tell them what it is. Just tell them what they can find. I think that that's not the right approach. I know it's not a super popular opinion, but I think that we get spammed with so many white papers that if it is just focused on the results of the white paper, then people are more likely to close it. So if it's somebody who's more of a middle manager that I'm targeting, then I'll use what we talked about, the formula, talk about their problems, agitate the problem, and then present the white paper as the solution. So typically the solution is not the product, it's information about the category or the space. And if it's more of an upper manager, a lot of times upper managers are not as connected to those everyday pain points, then I'll start with, this is what you want your business to look like, this is how much you want to grow, this is where you want to be in the next 5 years, but this is holding you back. This is the objection. And here's a white paper that's going to solve those problems for you. And I think that it sounds simple, but going back to the basics and using those basic formulas can be really, really helpful. And I like to tease a little bit what they'll find in there, not just give it away. If you rewrite statements, it's a concept called a fascination, which is a very old copywriting practice. But if you start the bullet points with how we do X or the easiest way to accomplish X, you can sort of tease the information without giving it all away, or the secrets to X. You know, it sounds a little bit cliche, But if you pair that basic template with something specific and industry relevant, it definitely works to sort of tease the information without saying, because like if you give the statistics away, like what incentive did they have to read the white paper?
Yep, total. Yeah, that was. So no excerpt, Artur, but it sounds like rewriting some of the key points in a way that's more of a teaser is a great way to let them know what's inside without giving the game away. So thank you for that, Naomi, and thank you for your question. I appreciate you're here, Artur, and asking away. Let's go. Trevor, we could talk about that's a whole other podcast, sir. But yes, I appreciate that people don't want to pick up their phones and be qualified. So I feel like we've built out the funnel pretty thoughtfully here, Naomi. Let me know if we've missed anything. So when we're talking about the awareness top part of the funnel and the 5 key chunks of that, from never have heard of the product to now being problem aware to solution aware to product aware to post aware. I love that, by the way. Gosh, that's so good. To now thinking about how you set up the website that way and taking them through, and then how you sprinkle in the social proof, the length of making sure the length of the website's hitting those marks of like people getting to the bottom, 25% getting to the bottom, not everybody, and really, mastering that art of bringing people through, but not running out of content. That seems like a lovely balance and a lovely statistic for us. So thank you for that. And then using the paid aspect to drive people to separate landing pages without a nav bar to give them a very specific task to accomplish. I mean, if y'all didn't write those down and start implementing those immediately, then I think, then I don't know why we're here, because those are amazing tips and I'm so grateful for them. In terms of copywriting and CRO, conversion rate optimization, what's sort of your last big piece of advice you tell clients that's an easy thing to implement that they should go do effective immediately that we didn't cover yet?
When it comes to CRO?
Yeah, copywriting and CRO.
That's a good question.
We did cover a lot. Do we miss anything?
I would say that the other thing that I usually suggest is to go through a few discovery calls, listen in on what the customers are actually saying. And this works really well for a lot of times people forget about this, but the introductory text for an ad, at the top, you have the banner and then you have the text at the top. If you can copy and paste the exact examples that people are using in their discovery calls, then that can be that can really, really help elevate your copy. It can help sort of stop the scroll. It can get people's attention. So like, for example, one time I heard, I'm waking up in the middle of the night worrying about this problem. Or I have a spreadsheet with 17 tabs open and I can never find the information that I need. Like, those are really specific examples where you're like, oh my God, I have that problem. And so if you just say, if you are still dealing with X, just copy and paste it from the transcript, put it in the copy, and then introduce your solution. Then you need the solution. And you can use that in emails too. It's a great thing to put in the beginning of an email to hook people in. That's going to elevate your copy. It's super simple. Discovery calls take like 20 minutes. And if you listen to them on 1.5 times the speed, or you don't even have to listen to them, you can just take the transcript and copy and paste what you need. That's a really super easy way to get the copy you need, because you don't actually have to write it. You just have to copy and paste it.
And you're using the customer's own language. So you're using language that they're already thinking about the problem in that way. So that's huge. That's huge. I do think I've had so many wonderful podcasts. Danny Wolf was definitely the pioneer who was on my show, talked about listening to your customer and what a great action item that can come out of just taking the time to listen to a few calls and figuring out how people are talking about the problem that they're having. Oh,
I think
so
that a lot
good.
of times we hear like listen to your customers, but then we go to customer success and they're like, no, you can't talk to any of these customers, or it's going to be too difficult, or it's going to take too much time and effort. And so people don't do it because they're like, this is going to take so much
You're
time.
getting shut
How do
down.
I talk to my customers? Especially if you're a marketer, because you're sort of in a different team. You're not a customer facing role. So the discovery call is like, wow, this is super simple. And 99% of sales teams record at least some of their calls, if only for training purposes.
I'd love to hear Trevor's thoughts on sharing those discovery calls with his marketing team if that's something he does. Trevor, comment away. I'd love to know that. I think it's really important what you're saying, and so I'm going to triple down on it. It's the discovery call, that first call that a salesperson has with a prospect. Listen to that call and hear how people are talking about the problem. I think that's so key. A lot of times we get caught up with trying to listen to as I was talking about, the end customer and customer success. But yes, I think you could start even sooner than that. So love that. Love that. Naomi, where can people find you? Where can they learn more about copy to convert and all the great work you're doing?
Yeah, you can follow me, connect with me on LinkedIn. My name is Naomi Soman, Soman. You can check out my website, storylogic.com. That's logick.com. And if you want to contact me directly, it's team@storylogic.com.
Amazing. She's also on LinkedIn, which is where we all hang out. So she's part of the Cool Kids Club over there. So definitely find her there. I will link to all of these things in the show notes, and we'll be sure to share it out. Naomi, before we go, you're more than a marketer. You're more than a copywriter. What are you most looking forward to? Spring is now, well, summer is about to unleash over there on Tel Aviv for sure. What are you most looking forward to now that the weather is getting a bit nicer and COVID is just exists now and it's happening and we're worried about it, but we're living with it. So in this new dawn, in this new era, what are you most looking forward to in 2024?
For the summer,
Yeah.
I love, there's a hill right near my apartment where people go and watch the sunset go down over the Mediterranean. And there's always like some guy playing the guitar, and people bring bottles of wine and picnic blankets. And it's just the most beautiful place to spend sunset. And that's like a summer thing to do. So that's what I'm looking forward to.
We're gonna need the place of that mountain when we all come to visit Tel Aviv. We can go check it out. That sounds
Next
beautiful.
to the Hilton. Next to the Hilton Hotel.
Well, perfect. So we have a place to stay and a mountain to climb. I love it. Thank you so much, Naomi, for joining me. I'm so grateful for this conversation.
Me too. Thank you so much for having me.
And thank you to our listeners. Thank you to Trevor Van Worden and for Artur F for joining us and for all of your wonderful questions. We will be still manning the comments. So if you are listening asynchronously and you have a question, fire away. We'll come back to you. Don't you worry. This episode is brought to you by MKG Marketing, the digital marketing agency that helps complex brands like cybersecurity and data management get found via SEO and digital ads. It's hosted by me, Carrie Gard, CEO and co-founder of MKG Marketing. And if you want to be a guest, I'd absolutely love to have you. So please DM me. Let's have you on the show. Naomi, thank you again.